Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Victim's Voice. Today, we will cover the second and final episode in the Solomon family case. We left off last week with Angie filing a motion for emergency custody placement. Gracie and Angie were at the hearing. However, Grant was in North Carolina playing baseball, so he couldn't be there. Two of his friends, Anna and Wynn, came to testify on his and Gracie's behalf. However, the judge didn't want to hear any of it. He didn't even want to hear Gracie. He ordered her to stay with Aaron, her father, who had just raped her at a hotel the night before. After the ordeal in North Carolina and the court hearing that followed, Gracie's mental health started to deteriorate even more than before. She felt trapped, and there was absolutely nothing anyone can do to get her out of the hell she was going through at the hands of the man that was supposed to protect and love her. On August 31st, he showed up, unannounced, to take Gracie out of school, even though he had promised not to do so during court-appointed therapy. Gracie started freaking out and texting her mom, saying, "I don't know what to do or where to go." Gracie ran to Rona Branson's office, one of the several principals at the school. She told Rona about what her father had been doing to her in hopes that someone would help her. Rona blew it off. She ordered Gracie to get into her dad's car and said her complaints were, quote, old news, end quote. Even a school, which is somewhere we trust our kids will be kept safe, turned on this young girl and handed her over to her abuser. In mid-September of 2018, there was another court hearing. Anna and Wynn, once again, came to testify about the abuse they had witnessed on Grant and Gracie's behalf, but the judge doesn't let them speak. This time, the judge does watch the video of the interview that Gracie did with the forensic investigator at Davis' house that he refused to watch at the last hearing. He watched a small part and said he had seen enough. At first, he ruled that both children could go live with Angie, but a few days later, changed his ruling and sent both kids back to their father again. According to Angie, Grant said to her, quote, "It's okay, Mom. If I go with him, he won't be able to hurt Gracie," end quote. In November of 2018, Gracie went to school and confided in some of her friends about the abuse that had gone on in her father's home. One of the school administrators heard that Gracie was talking about this with her peers and brought her into the office. He told her she needed to stop talking about it because it was upsetting other kids at the school. It seemed that Grace Christian Academy and the affiliated church did not want to hear anything negative when it came to Aaron Solomon. Not only Angie and the kids, but several personal friends of theirs had witnessed the abuse and tried to express their concerns to the church members and school administrators. Yet these so-called Christian people stood by an abuser who was worth lots of money. Grant was fed up. He decided to go into the school and ordered a meeting with Rona Branson and a few other administrators at the school. He refused to attend school until they would speak to him. He was tired of no one listening to his sister. He wanted them to help her get away from her abuser. They barely let Grant talk. They then started justifying their behavior and blaming Gracie for being assaulted. They then tell him that they were trying to put a stop to it because they wanted to save Gracie from her bad reputation. I'm sure Gracie's reputation is what they were concerned about. It couldn't be the reputation that they were going to have when the public found out that they were turning a blind eye to when it came to Solomon children being abused. Grant also met with Pastor Steve Berger of Grace Chapel, the church that was affiliated with the school. Berger spoke highly of Aaron, ignoring all of Grant's concerns. Later, when asked about his meeting with Grant, he said, quote, "Grant was just attempting to grow closer to God," end quote. In February 2019, at the suggestion of Bill Woodward, the director of campus safety, Angie filed a petition with the court for dependent neglect. The case was heard by Judge Deanne Johnson, a prominent member of Grace Chapel Church, along with her husband, Republican State Senator Jack Johnson. Judge Johnson had already discussed the Solomon family with Bill Woodward, and Pastor Steve Berger had made it clear in the church that he fully supported Aaron. Instead of recusing herself from the case because of conflict of interest, she labels Angie an abusive litigant and bars her from filing any motions against Aaron for the next 4 years, until Gracie is 18. In June of 2020, Grant Solomon turned 18. He had decided when he was 18 that he was going to fight for justice for his sister and mom. He thought with him being 18, the courts would listen to him. He had no way to know that he would never get that chance. On the morning of July 20th, 2020, Grant told Angie, quote, "Mom, I don't want to die in Gallatin today," end quote. Grant had recently been ill with COVID, and he was newly diagnosed with asthma. Even so, his father, Aaron, had scheduled a private baseball session for that morning at Ward Performance Institute, also known as WPI, in Gallatin, Tennessee. Or so he said he did. It was later confirmed with management of WPI that Aaron had not scheduled a practice for that morning. At this point in time, both children were living with their mom. Grant didn't want to go to that practice in Gallatin. He didn't believe that he would perform at his best considering his compromised lung function at the time. He also had not been alone with Aaron in over 2 years and did not want to be with him on this date either. Angie repeatedly told Aaron that Grant didn't feel like going to the practice. Just 2 days earlier, she texted Aaron, quote, "I do not think Grant needs to be working out until his lungs are more stable. My opinion is on the record. You are playing with fire." When Aaron didn't respond, Angie texted him again that Saturday evening, and also at 12:29 a.m. on Monday. Angie explained how Grant did not want Aaron to stay for the practice and preferred to do it on his own. Aaron still did not reply to Angie. Aaron only responded after Angie texted on Monday at 7:38 a.m. Angie said, quote, "If you're up, Grant has a change of mind and doesn't want to die in Gallatin, so one of us needs to be there. Will you? If not, I will go and sit in the parking lot. Let me know ASAP." End quote. "I will be there," was the message Aaron responded with. So Grant drove off in his 2015 Toyota Tacoma pickup truck to meet his father. According to the Life 360 app, he arrived at WPI between 8:37 a.m. and 8:41 a.m. According to Aaron, who we all know is a liar, they both pulled into the parking lot and parked side by side in their trucks. Grant got out and went to the bed of his truck to get his baseball equipment. Aaron said he was in the driver's seat of his truck when he looked down to answer a work email. When he looked up again, his son and his truck were both gone. Aaron claimed the truck had started to roll backwards and pinned Grant underneath, dragging him down the asphalt slope of the parking lot and into the rocky ditch in front of the facility. Grant was trapped and unconscious, but Aaron had no way of knowing if this was true because he never went down to check on his son at all. After seeing his son drug across a hot asphalt parking lot, according to him, and trapped underneath, Aaron stood at the top of the hill next to his own truck, and at 8:44 a.m., he finally called 911. Take that call how you will. Let's dissect the call a little bit. Grant is stuck under his truck at the bottom of the parking lot in a ditch. Yet Aaron never goes down to where his son is at all to try to help him. Why would you not run to your child and see if he was okay or if you could possibly help him? He says there are 3 guys down there helping him, but sirens can be heard in the call, and when emergency officials got there, there was no one there but Aaron at the top of the parking lot and Grant under the truck. Where did these so-called 3 men go? Did they haul ass out of there when they heard sirens, or did they even exist at all? To this day, they have never been found. This call is one of the fakest sounding 911 calls I have ever heard. Even when Aaron is talking to what he said were the 3 men, his statements and replies sound completely fake. And when he says, quote, This is not good. Please hurry. I don't think I even need to say anything at all about that. Or when he says, "Turn your head, Grant, but be careful," as he is yelling this from the top of the parking lot. This whole call is a joke, in my opinion. Aaron sounded like he was saying what he thought he should say, but he didn't remember to put the emotion behind it. The two people who were working that day at WPI said they didn't know anything was happening until they heard the sirens. That is when they went outside to see what was going on. And they seen Aaron still at the top of the parking lot scrolling through his cell phone while his son is at the bottom of the hill under his truck. The two witnesses stated that they both thought something was weird with the way Aaron had described what happened. Here are some more bizarre facts about what happened that day. Grant was found in between the front two tires, not under them. He also was not trapped, as Aaron had said over and over in the 911 call. He would have known that had he went down the hill to help him. The Life 360 data from the phone showed that Grant had not even made it into the parking lot. His location data stopped in the driveway next to the ditch. The strangest thing was Grant's injuries. He had no cuts, no scrapes, and no lacerations consistent with being dragged across the asphalt and into a ditch made mostly of rocks. He was wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and socks and shoes, which were all clean. The only injuries he had were a couple of bruises and blunt force trauma to the back of the head, which they said was a fatal blow. No other marks on his body, his clothes were clean, and blunt force trauma to the head. He was also bleeding from his nose and ears due to the blow on the back of his head. There also was one baseball bat missing from Grant's equipment bag, and it has never been found. How can authorities not put two and two together? Or are they just turning a blind eye once again because his name is Aaron Solomon? When the truck was examined at the scene, the keys were in the ignition, which Angie and Grace said Grant would never have left them in the ignition. The truck was also in park, so how did it roll backwards? They also found Grant's baseball equipment in the back seat of the truck, not in the bed of the truck. This throws Aaron's whole story off, since he said Grant had been behind the truck getting his equipment when it rolled over him. Aaron's account of that day has continuously been inconsistent. Later, he said that Grant's truck had reversed into the road in front of WPI, then drifted forward towards Grant. Unless this truck is named Christine from Stephen King, then I don't think that is possible. Let's talk about the position that the truck was in when the police and medical professionals got there. Okay, the building is at the top, and then there is an asphalt parking lot with kind of a downward slope. At the bottom is a ditch filled with large rocks. The ditch is deep and goes down, then back up the other side in almost a V shape. Then the road is on the other side of the ditch. The truck was found with the front end pointing down into the ditch, with the back end towards the road, which means the truck would have had to roll backwards down the parking lot, go down into the ditch, then back up the other side of the ditch, and then stop. I will post pictures of the truck in this position on the Victim's Voice Facebook page. But in my opinion, it is impossible. It looks like the truck was pulled in forward with the nose of the truck pointing down into the ditch. It's hard to explain, but you will see what I mean in the photos. Also, Aaron kept the truck for months and continued to drive it. Why would he not have gotten it checked out to see if there was a malfunction? He could have also probably sued the makers of the truck had he allowed an autopsy on Grant and had the truck looked over, but he didn't allow either. Aaron said something weird to Angie when she got to the hospital the day that Grant died. He said, quote, "We're going to be a family now," end quote, as if getting Grant out of the way would make Angie go back to Aaron. The Gallatin Police Department called Grant's death a tragic accident and closed the case very quickly. Grant was loved in his community. Hundreds of people attended his funeral. Aaron put on his newscaster persona and gave the performance of a lifetime at Grant's funeral. He called Grant's death a godly thing and stated everything happens for a reason. He said, quote, "We are all asking why right now. God is the why," end quote. Steve Berger, the pastor at Grace Chapel, also spoke. He talked about how Grant was such a godly young man and how he had visited his office just to, quote, "talk about Jesus," end quote, sit in my office for well over an hour just wanting to know how he could draw closer to Christ, end quote. When in reality, he went to his office to try to get someone to help his family from Aaron's abuse. Everyone who supported Angie, Grant, and Gracie were appalled by the show that Steve and Aaron put on at the funeral. They were using Grant's funeral to try to convince people of their innocence and the events that had led up to Grant's death. The musician Taylor Swift sent flowers to Angie a few days after Grant's death. Taylor had grown up in Nashville and heard about Grant's story. Aaron used this to gain clout and publicity. He would take pictures with the flowers in the card and post them on social media to show off, even though they were sent to Angie and not Aaron. Robbie Mason, the headmaster of Grace Christian Academy, Steve Berger, the pastor of Grace Christian Academy, and Aaron all threatened lawsuits to anyone who spoke against the church, the school, or Aaron himself, or anyone who believed he had been terrorizing his family for over 10 years, had molested Gracie, or killed Grant. Aaron even sued Grant's best friend, Wynn Hicks, for speaking out against him during the court hearings. At this point, Angie hired a private investigator to look into Grant's death. She knew that his death wasn't a freak accident like Aaron was trying to convince people of. She knew in her heart that he was lying about what happened that day, and Grant deserved justice. Aaron was not giving up when it came to Gracie either. After Grant's death, he demanded that they maintain 50-50 custody of Gracie. Aaron stated, "Now more so than ever, Gracie needs both parents in her life." Now that Grant was gone, Gracie was more terrified than ever of being with her father. With no one else there to protect her, she knew what her father would do. She started skipping school to avoid picking her up at random times. Between what Aaron was doing to her and now the loss of her brother, Gracie was deteriorating mentally so much that Angie said she remembered that Gracie would have panic attacks and break out in hives. Angie had hit her breaking point. She already had lost one child. She knew she had to protect Gracie at all costs. They went together and filed for a restraining order against Aaron. Wynn Hicks and Anna Smith, Grant's best friends, once again showed up to testify against Aaron in court. The restraining order was granted, but because of Grace Christian Academy's administration, Aaron was still permitted on the school grounds. What is wrong with these people at this school? Why are they not protecting Gracie from this man? This is sick and disgusting behavior from a place where people call themselves Christians. Angie had been searching for Grant's truck ever since Aaron told her he sold it to a scrapyard. She finally found it after almost a year of looking for it. It was at a scrapyard and Angie was able to purchase the truck from them. The amazing thing was, it had not been cleaned since it was sold to them. Angie did her own inspection of the truck, and she found a few things of interest. First, she found blood splatter underneath the truck and inside of the truck. How did blood get inside of the truck if Grant was never inside of the truck, but was underneath of it? Angie took the truck and had it processed by a professional forensic team. However, the findings have not yet been released. Today, Gracie is living with Angie, and they are on a mission to get justice for Grant and have Aaron held accountable for what he has put Gracie and Angie through. Gracie's entire life has been living in fear of her father and what he would do to her when he got the chance. She should be living her life carefree like other kids her age, but she can't and never will because of the abuse that she has endured ever since she can remember. They aren't fighting the fight alone, however. Grant's girlfriend Hannah and Anna and Wynn are fighting along with them, among many other family and community members. Grant's goal in his short life was to protect his mom and his sister and keep them safe from the monster that he called Dad. Aaron felt threatened by Grant, and he knew he was about to be stopped, so he had to get him out of the way. The members of Grace Chapel and the administration of Grace Christian Academy should be ashamed of themselves. They are supposed to protect the kids that go there, not hand them over to the monsters because he makes a big donation to their organization. It is sickening that Gracie and Grant didn't even feel safe at their school, nor at their home. There have been other students and former church members that have come out saying that there are a lot of problems within the church and school. People are coming out saying they have witnessed Aaron's behavior themselves and that they regret not saying anything sooner. Gracie has been brave enough to share her story in hopes that someone, anyone, will hear it and help. I have also released the audio of it. It's called Gracie's Story, A Cry for Help. To help Angie and Gracie, you can donate at their GoFundMe, which I have linked in the show notes and on the Victim's Voice Facebook page. There is also a petition that you can sign trying to get an investigation going in Grant's suspicious death. And to spread the word, you can share this episode and use the hashtags Freedom for Gracie and Justice for Grant. You can find Freedom for Gracie on Instagram and on Facebook. These are two amazing people who need our help, even if it's just sharing their story. I hope Angie and Grace get the justice they deserve for themselves and for Grant. It is sad that all these doors have been slammed in their faces because of the money and power Aaron has over certain members of the community. Angie is an amazing mother who has never and will never stop fighting for her kids. And Gracie is a survivor who will fight and help others with her story.